Welcome back, punters, to another spring review. Of course, we had Cox Plate Day Saturday. Good morning, Peter Lawrence. How are you?
Going well, Paul. Anything I do to try and get rid of this red face on this camera doesn't work. I'm too tight to buy a good camera, so we just have to go with the old red.
Indeed, indeed. Well, of course, Cox Plate Saturday, great day. I got the track running as a sort of a slow 7, sort of between a 7 and an 8, I suppose. We saw some great performances. Animo, plenty to talk about there. Probably not as good as what some people might make out. But anyway, we'll start off with the 2-year-old. Average early, below average by the time they got to the 600. Arkansas Kid in the English banner. I thought it was a pretty woeful race myself. What did you have to say?
Yeah, I wouldn't quite say woeful. I thought it was just average or slightly below for a 2-year-old race this time of the year. These English banner races don't usually throw up a particularly good horse. But he did a good job, set out 3 wide. Thought I was on Mexico myself. I thought it had it shot to pieces on the turn. But I wouldn't think any of those horses would be winning any of the major 2-year-old races coming up at Flemington.
But at best, Pete, though, I think these restricted races, like this race, I think at best they're like a 2-year-old open.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I thought it was just an average 2-year-old open.
Yeah. Okay, let's get on to race 2, the other 1,000 metres. Solid early for the first 200, and then above average by the time they got to the 600 in Scissor Step. Obviously, this race ran the best of the 2,000 metre races in terms of time, but look, Scissor Step is a horse that I think wasn't really well set up in this race going into it, but he got the job done. What did you have to say about it? What did you think before the race?
Look, for me, it was a frustrating race. I thought Scissor Step was far and away the best horse in the race, but I didn't think he'd handle the wet. And I think as it turned out, he hasn't handled wet, but he's still got the job done. I thought he went rated well down on what he's capable of. But it was just enough with a great ride, sitting outside the lead. I don't think anyone would have predicted that. And he was able to scrape in over Esther La Rocca, who I thought went about as well as she can go. I thought Ashford Street's been disappointing now 3 times this campaign.
Hasn't come up, has it, Pete?
No, everything was just made to order for him. He's in the right place, but he just plugged to the line. Wolflands I had going about as good as it can go. But Scissor Step, I thought it was a solid enough run, and I'd want to be on it next start if the track was dry. I know that might sound stupid, but I thought he went maybe 4 lengths below what he's capable of on Saturday.
Ancestry is just nowhere near a horse anymore, is it? It's just completely gone.
Yeah.
For what it used to be, and the fact that it still sort of gobbles up percentage. I
know.
You sort of have to wonder, don't you?
Well, it's like that horse. Ancestry used to be just a beast, and it's like if you owned Forbes, who was unluckily beaten at its first start by Animo and has never won another race, and races around in maidens at Nowra, can be a frustrating thing owning racehorses, that's for sure.
Okay, let's get on to the Sajarden race. Average tempo here over 1,200 metres. I mean, you and I know we're both on Nash's ride here, which we're both probably wondering how the hell he decided to adopt those tactics. But anyway, it is what it is.
Yeah.
Just total forget run, isn't it?
Well, I was on Sweet Ride and Shillelagh, so it's like reliving a nightmare even thinking about it. The ride on Shillelagh just defied any sort of, I just couldn't believe it. It was just restrain over 1,200 at Moonee Valley when you've jumped a half a length in front and riding it on one rein for whatever reason. But I did think Sweet Ride was home on the turn. The winner's gone enormous, just absolutely powered home. I thought it would get trapped back on the fence, but it was helped by Nash's tactics there. I thought it was a pretty strong race, just the same going forward. And Sweet Ride's just in great form. I would forgive Shillelagh. And I thought Sajarden was probably worth following going forward. He could win a good 1400 metre race, especially on a wet track. He's a bit of a duck.
Okay, let's get on to the wee Nessie race. They ran much better time here, but of course went out about 8 lengths faster. The wee Nessie race, fast tempo, solid by the time they got to 600. What did you think here? I mean, some of these figures are...
Just on that point, just you saying they went out 5 lengths faster, it sort of makes the Shillelagh ride even stranger.
About 8 lengths faster, Pete.
Yeah,
8
yeah.
to
And
600.
so they weren't even going fast in the sweet ride race, and you're restraining for 600 metres. It was really puzzling. Anyway, this race, they did go out fast. They came home a lot slower. And I thought it was a below average 3-year-old fillies race, way weaker than the Colts and Geldings. I guess that wee Nessie has won a listed race, but probably had its birthday there on Saturday. I wouldn't be falling over myself to be on any of these horses, which is strange because leading into the race, I thought it was quite a strong race with lots of horses that had won at their debut, who I thought might have a lot of upside. But the flop was Willinga Beast, who ran terribly. And I thought that Running By wasn't a bad run. Had to get up on the inside there in the worst going, and it only had one run previously on the synthetic. There's probably a race for it somewhere around, but I wouldn't think in the top class.
Well, I won't rub your nose in it too much here, Pete. Well, sorry, I was jumping ahead of myself. Sorry. No, we're on to the Fillies Classic, the 1600 metres race for 3-year-old fillies. What did you think in Zoe's race?
Again, I thought this was a pretty weak, very weak Group 2. I wouldn't have had it very much stronger than the listed race the previous. Always doing the form on these meetings at Moonee Valley. Doing wet track back form is hard enough anyway, but at the Valley it's harder still. I guess the disappointing runner was Do It La, who just got into the box seat, seemed to be okay handling the wet track, but just produced nothing when the chips were down. I thought the second horse went really well, Climbing Star, only having its second start. And, there could well be a good race for her around the corner. And Zoe's Promise is a real example of how people get bamboozled in the modern era by the SP profile. 2 starts ago, she ran only beaten 2 lengths by Waltz on By. She was 100 to 1. Next start, she came out and won at $14. And next start, she's come out again, won at $10. If you'd have just taken that 2-length result behind Waltz on By on face value, you'd have been on her at both of these next 2 starts. And a good, tough fighting win. Both times. She kicked again to win at Caulfield and kicked again there on Saturday. So she's going well, but just a below average Group 2 race.
Yes, okay. Next race, of course, the Crystal Mile. They really went fast here, which sort of, I suppose, helped the horse that I backed, but it did a pretty good job too, I think, Baker's Choice, because you really had to be close to the lead within a couple of lengths. So that certainly by the time you got to the 600 on the day to feature, I thought. But Baker's Choice got its chance after a very, I suppose, luckless run the previous start. But the winner, gee, My Oberon, nice horse.
Yeah, look, we all expected a fast pace, but to think that Buffalo River was, 3 and 4 lengths in front of Gentleman Roy and then another few lengths away to Military Expert, it was just an incredibly fast tempo. Terrific run by Buffalo River to hang on a run. The others have been distance, beaten 7 lengths and 8 lengths, the other 2 horses that were up on the pace there. I guess I'm concerned that flattered My Oberon a bit, but I've still got him rating very, very highly. I thought Banker's Choice went well. I wouldn't have thought he was terribly disadvantaged coming from the back given that the pace was so strong, and he did
Well,
tag.
that's what I'm saying, though. But still,
Yeah.
I mean, it's on the day. It was tough to make ground.
Yeah, it was. The winner went enormous. Whether you're going to trust that run and give him any improvement next start's another matter. Always fraught with danger at the Valley.
Okay, let's move on to the Vase. Thank God for this result. Anyway, I bet heavily against Pericles and backed the first two, but I might have been a bit lucky. Average tempo here, Pete. What did you think going into the race?
Look, going into the race, to be honest, I had Berkeley Square on top, but I didn't have it as short as the market had it. I thought it was a reasonably open race. This is a great example of trying to do the back form at Moonee Valley on wet tracks where it can just collapse as far as times are concerned. The time here, if you took it on face value, is amazing compared to the Cox Plate. And even so, I do think it's a particularly strong form race going forward. I think the first three are outstanding chances in the Derby, all of them. And I think that's pretty much the best.
Virtuous Circle's not going to the Derby, I don't think, is it? Isn't it being tipped out?
I'm surprised at that, although I noticed that he's 34 and 29 days between runs at his last two, so maybe they've decided he's more of a fresh horse. I thought the winner was great. I thought Pericles only having his third start, such a tough run, so heavily backed. So obviously people saw a lot in that second to Opal Ridge on that terribly biased track at Randwick. So I thought they were both really outstanding runs, and I thought they were both great Derby trials.
Yeah, would you want to back it in the Derby, though, Pete? I mean, what's your thoughts there?
Look,
Sydney horse was sharp and smart.
Backed Mr. Maestro early for the Derby, but I fear that that's not nearly as strong as this form. I think this is the right form going into the Derby, and the sharp and smart from Sydney. I think they're the three completely dominant horses here.
Because when we talk about the reference in time with the Cox Plate, Anamo's gone, well, the race has gone 1.3 lengths faster than this race, yet this race went out 3.4 lengths slower, which is a bit of a pull, I think, on the Cox Plate, but we'll talk about that. Moonee Valley Cup, Francesco Guardi. Look, I probably should have pulled the trigger here, and I didn't, which was a mistake. I was on at the previous start when it nearly got knocked down and did an amazing job. Lunar Flare I've got running to its best, and not much else to say about the race for me. Persan I thought was a little disappointing. What are your thoughts?
Well, again, taken at face value, this is a great run by Francesco Guardi. Just absolutely donkey-licked them. Whether it will repeat that on a dry track at Flemington over 3,200 metres is another thing. But I thought it was a very, very strong win. I thought, agreed with you, Lunar Flare went the best that she can go, and the others were just sort of dropping away. It'd be hard to not be impressed by the ease of that win by Francesco Guardi.
Okay, let's get on to the Cox Plate. Animo, I thought great ride, but probably a bit lucky. There was a couple of roadblocks there behind it, which I think impeded some of the other runners there. I'm Thunderstruck, I thought was a little unlucky. And even Gold Trip, I think the ride on Gold Trip wasn't much cop myself, but maybe I'm just talking through my kick. What are your thoughts on the Cox Plate post-race, Pete?
Well, we all knew the setup with the map and everything, and before the race, it was just every possible advantage to Animo, with Alligator Blood drawing out wide and Zaki drawing inside him today. Zaki was always going to hold him out. Animo was always going to lob into the absolute prime position. I don't have Animo going any better than he did last start when he won the Caulfield Stakes. I've got it just going exactly the same. I don't think there's much doubt that if I'm Thunderstruck had drawn a better alley and had been able to tag Animo into the race, that he would have beaten him. made up so much ground in the final stages, not by much. I'm saying it probably cost him a half a length. So I think he would have at least made it very, very interesting. I thought Zaki was slightly disadvantaged by having to be on the rail that whole way and probably went down maybe, a length or slightly less than a length. And the others have finished about where they should. I don't think I don't think that Jamie Spencer did anything wrong on Gold Trip. Thought if he was disadvantaged at all, it would be by a small margin. And it's just it's mystifying the preparation they've given Profondo this campaign. I can't understand how you would have such a valuable stallion and be giving him the campaign that you've had, but there you go. So I thought it was a good solid win by Animo. Did he go any better this year than he went last year? No, I don't think so.
No,
Did he go
I've got him.
The Caulfield Stakes? I think no, but a terrific win.
I've got him going back about a pound on his last start, and I've got him going backwards about 3 pounds on his Cox Plate run last year. Look, I mean, it's a great story. Well done to the connections.
Yes.
But
and one of the things that should be pointed out, you always hear people poo-poo 2-year-old racing in Australia and say that we do this and we do that and we shouldn't be racing them 2-year-olds. Almost all top line horses have had a campaign at 2. And in the case of Animo, he started in everything. He started in the lead up to the Diamond, started in the Blue Diamond, he started in a lead up to the Slipper, ran in the Slipper, ran in the Sires, won the Champagne. Hats off to Godolphin. They raced their horses, and I see they're going to run him in what used to be the McKinnon on the final day of the carnival. And that's great for racing. Good on them for keeping him going. And it'd be interesting if they take on Thunderstruck there as well.
Okay, let's get on to the next race, the Tessio Stakes. My Whisper bounced back to form. Pete, you've got an interesting theory you might want to share as to why.
I did mention to you beforehand that all her previous good form had all been in Melbourne, and her 2 Sydney runs this campaign were definitely down on that. So I was happy to take the chance that she would bounce back. Third up for Peter Snowden. That's often a good system to be following. I was concerned about whether she'd handle the wet, but she certainly did that. I thought was pretty strong Group 3. I thought Roots ran very well. I don't think it was disadvantaged by coming up where it did. It was pretty well in the exact same position that Bella Nipotina did in the next race. And I thought Cirileo Miss probably went to a slight new peak for her. I thought she ran very well. Pretty strong race, and I'd want to be on my Whisper next start in that 2,000 metre race for the mares on the last race of the carnival. I think she'll be in apple pie order for that race.
Well, it's funny, I had her 2 best figures at Morfettville last prep over 1,800 and 2,000, and on my track speeds had those both as just slightly dead, those tracks, or sort of that in that dead range. So in my mind, that sort of, I suppose, augurs to support your argument, and that was a good strategy of you to suggest that it might improve that much. Roots I've got going to a slight new peak. Cirileo Miss I've actually got going backwards slightly off its last start. I did have that race going pretty good. Anyway, that's enough of that. Let's get on to, of course, the last, and of course, this is the one I don't want to rub your nose in. The Manikato, God bless Bella Nipotina, absolutely smashed them. I've got her going to a decent new peak. Admittedly, there were a few things in her favour in this race, but I think this preparation, she's a different horse or better horse than what she has been prior. And I just can't rate the race any worse. That's my problem with some of these other beaten runners. But what do you think, Pete?
Well, I've definitely underestimated her going into the race, no doubt about it. Leading into the race, was very keen on Best of Bordeaux. I thought he'd get up outside Rothfire, be in the right part of the track. I suspect they overdid it a bit, Damien Lane and Tim Clark, that they just went too fast. And this is just a classic situation that you find at Moonee Valley on a wet track all the time. One horse will for whatever reason, do they get into some specific part of the track that is 3 lengths faster than anywhere else? But no one in their right mind would say that Bella Nipotina would win that race if they ran it again next week on a good track by 5 lengths. If you gave her the actual rating she would get, which I see some other people have done, you've got a beating nature strip. So experience tells me at Moonee Valley, you just have to, in these instances, what I do is I rate off the second horse and just bring the winner back into something that looks more realistic. And I suppose she may well have gone to a new peak by 2 lengths. It's possible, but she has had 31 starts and is a 5-year-old mare.
It's questionable, but it's questionable. Yeah. I mean, I've done the same as you. I've tried to take a line through Rothfire and Best of Bordeaux, and I just can't rate the race. I've got Rothfire going backwards again, regressing for the second time this preparation. So first to second run went back, second to third run went back, even accounting for the margin. But I just can't get this. I just can't get the race any worse, and it does worry me for the Winnever.
No, exactly. And going forward, we saw with Military Expert on Saturday, the day he won at Moonee Valley on the wet track over a mile, it's rated through the roof, and he's had 3 runs since. And even returning to Moonee Valley under the same conditions, he can't repeat that run. And we saw it a year or so ago with Jittery Jack when he won by, 10 lengths one day at the Valley, and he's still
Jittery who?
Jittery Jack. He's 20-1 in the same race next.
He got beat. Some people. Well, see, it's funny because you and I both talked about that at the time. I remember. I had it was pretty ordinary performance. Yet some had that, quite high, and it made no sense because the horse did start longer odds in its subsequent starts and did nothing.
Exactly. And if they run Bella Nipotina in the Champions Sprint in the last day of the carnival, no one will be using this rating as an indication of what you do going forward. So, but having
if they did, they'd regress it, right?
Yeah, sure. Exactly. So, does have to be said, was definitely her best ever run, and fabulous trainers. She came very heavily backed into 5-2 in the old, and just absolutely smashed them. And the time was very fast. So I thought Best of Bordeaux was very brave. If I had owned Best of Bordeaux, it's not the Group 1 I would have set it for, but I would have thought the Coolmore was more up his alley. But he may run in the Coolmore next week, and it'd be hard to beat. He's an underrated horse.
Yeah, what is the favourite for that? In Secret, is it? In Jacquinot?
Yeah, In Secret and Jacquinot. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
The thing that Best of Bordeaux has in his favour is in the last few years, trying to keep those horses up from the Golden Rose going to that Coolmore has proved a bridge too far for almost everyone. So Coolmore have done it before. They didn't start In Secret this year in the Golden Rose. So I think they've learned their lesson from trying to get those Golden Rose winners to back up in the Coolmore. But it'll be a great race next week.
So just looking at the Derby for next Saturday, Pete, just checking Tabcorp, they've gone up here. The market was offline when I checked before. Sharp and Smart 5-2, Berkeley Square 3-1, 7-2 Mr. Maestro, 9-1 Pericles, 12's Mamasa, and then longer odds the rest. Do you think that the 9-1 Pericles is the right number? Do you think that they might burn that horse, given what happened on Saturday with the betting?
I think that I think the barrier draw will be everything, because betting early in the Derby when there'll be 18 runners, 10 of whom are completely legless, and if you draw wide and go back, it's just an absolute recipe for disaster. You're 15 lengths off the lead and you've got nothing to carry you into the race. So we see it year after year. The barrier draw is critical in the Derby. I wouldn't be backing anyone at 5-2 with the chance that a Sharp and Smart would draw wide. My concern slightly with Sharp and Smart is that he just had such a hard run on Saturday, but that may well work in his favour. I'm not saying it won't. But at this stage, I would have had virtually nothing between Berkeley Square, Pericles, and Sharp and Smart. So I think the draw and how they map will be key.
Yeah, absolutely. Good insight, Pete. Thanks very much for that. Of course, punters will be back next week, reviewing the Derby Day and on the Melbourne Cup even. We might have a winner there. Who knows?
Beautiful.
Okay, thanks, Pete.
Thanks, Paul.
Cheers.